A magical woman across the sea has been decreasing a number that started at 100, going down by 1 every year, and killing anyone whose age matches said number. All expeditions to stop her, up till now, have failed. 67 years later, 33 is next. The question is, will you be the one to stop her? Without wasting any of your time, let's get into the full story of Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. We start our story here, overlooking a beautiful yet disheartening scene of our city, Lumiere. Tattered and broken from an event roughly 67 years ago known as the Fracture, it sent the now island city into the ocean and tore the continent apart, introducing new threats and dynamics into the world that we'll go over as we get to them. We find a man standing on a rooftop gazing out at a distant monolith. This is Gustave, our protagonist. He looks out with sadness and anger, throwing a rock out in the distance, despite knowing it won't hit. He stares down a being we come to know as the Paintress, who, with that number above her head, paints death every year. A harrowing concept of literally just having a timer ticking down to your death, and unfortunately, today is the day she does just that. Today is an event known as the gommage, or the erasing, an event where the number hung above the Paintress lowers by 1, and anyone of that age withers and dies. While horrible and sad, the people of Lumiere have turned it into a final celebration of life, a festival for those who are passing, and in preparation for the expedition setting out the next day, the namesake Expedition 33. We're then joined by a young red-headed girl armed with quick wit and a dark sense of humor. This is Maëlle, another of our protagonists. She joins Gustave on the roof and remarks about how he still needs to give his flower to Sophie before she goes. Today is the day of Sophie's gommage. Gustave intends to give her a flower, but they've been apart for nearly 4 years, so he's nervous. Maëlle remarks that the sun is close to setting, and if he wants to speak to her, he needs to do it now, and he can't afford to waste time. So, with Maëlle giving him a slight pep talk, he decides to head down from the rooftops to go see Sophie. He finds her chatting with friends, wearing a necklace of red and white flowers, a sign that her final day has come. He pulls her aside, asking to talk, and gives her the rose he had picked for her. They stumble over each other's words, trying to talk and explain their feelings, clearly still holding feelings for each other, yet both knowing it's too late now to save anything. They wish it could have been different, and in a bittersweet moment, Gustave promises her that this time, they will stop the Paintress from stealing anyone else's future. She asks if he would walk her down to the harbor for the gommage, and he accepts. They wind their way through the streets, the stalls of flower vendors, and swaths of people trying their best to give one good final day to those who are leaving. They meet a few friends and see a few performances until they find their way to the dock. Meeting Gustave's apprentices, Sophie actually had a surprise lined up for him. His Expedition 33 uniform, specially tailored so that he wouldn't need to roll up his sleeve when he uses his prosthesis. She explains that she wanted to see him wearing his uniform before she went, and so he puts it on for her, and they step down to the end of the dock. The sun is setting. Gustave and Sophie hold on to each other tight as their final seconds are up. They look out at the Paintress as she rises and erases the 34 on the monolith, painting the number 33 high on display. This is it. The moment has come. We watch as the people around them vanish into clouds of flower petals. They turn to each other with broken voices and tears running down their cheeks as Gustave reassures Sophie that he's here with her, holding her tight and making sure she's not alone in her final moments. Heartbroken, sorrow, helplessness, all these emotions flash through his eyes, but the last one we see is more important. A despairing fury, a silent vow that he will put an end to this, that this time we will take her down and end this cruel cycle. We then arrive at the Festival de l'Expédition, a celebration of the Expedition 33 setting out tomorrow, as well as a kind of group grieving of those who were snapped. We learn a bit about the world here. Most importantly, we learn about the two most important aspects of this world going forward: chroma and lumina. Chroma being this world's magic, able to be etched onto machines and skin alike, and lumina, essence from nevrons we can absorb with Gustave's invention, the lumina converter. This thing is basically the in-lore explanation of how we can level up and equip passives. We also learn that we plan to follow in the footsteps of Expedition 0, starting with their landing point and leading all the way up to the monolith. We meet up with Maëlle again and learn that she's not only our apprentice, but also Gustave's adopted daughter/sister, since her parents gommaged when she was young. Finally, Gustav's sister arrives, Emma, a council member of the city and the one who is to give a rallying speech to the expeditioners. She tries in vain one last time to convince him not to go, but with his resolve firm, he refuses, and she says a final goodbye and takes her place at the podium to give her speech.
We do not take for granted that you dedicate your final year of life to keeping hope alive for all of Lumiere. When you battle the Paintress, know that Lumiere fights with you.
Now, I'm just going to give you a little warning here. If you end up watching through this video, there's a good chance you're going to be in tears by the end of it. So, good luck. Why they gotta do that, man? What the fuck? But without further ado, we begin Act 1. We hit the shores of the continent, a dark, foggy, and foreboding place. No one here knows what to expect, and everyone's on edge. The landscape is torn and jagged, littered with wreckage of past expeditions. We made a man on this beach, and the first thing we notice is he's old. Like, really old. Now that goes against our basic understanding of the world. How did he survive the Gamage? Why is he wearing an expedition uniform? Yeah, fuck this. Things are not looking good. This has basically become D-Day. Explosions are going off, people are dying, our comrades are getting yoinked out of thin air by things we can't even see, and Gustav comes face to face with some eldritch abomination that slaps him into a coma. Our man wakes up in a new place, somewhere much more safe than that beach, thankfully. Literally on his last point of health, surviving by the skin of his teeth, but surviving nonetheless. We then encounter our first enemy we can actually fight, a Nevron. That's what these things are called, by the way. They all have names for the specific type of enemy, but as a whole, they're called Nevrons. We fight a few times and eventually find our way into a bloodbath, where Gustav sits down in horror. The camera pans to see he's taken a seat by one of his friends we met at the festival.
You do that, we both die.
Thankfully, Lune shows up to stop us and gives us a reminder that we need to keep going. As the motto of the expeditioners states,
When one falls, we continue.
She's right, and on top of that, we need to find Mael. The protocol states that we meet at the Indigo Tree if the expedition gets split up, so we head there in search of Mael. We make our way through a few more enemies and eventually arrive at the rendezvous point. We made it just in time to see another expeditioner get immediately taken out. And with nowhere to run, it's boss fight time. After the fight, we find a note saying that someone took Mael to the Weird Corals, and with no way to tell who wrote it, we aren't sure if it's a trap or not. However, we've got nothing else to do and nowhere to go, so time to go find out. We find ourselves in the Flying Waters, and despite the fact that we're in a life or death scenario, we remembered this is a whole new world with amazing things around us. It's beautiful here, honestly. Even this little guy over here has a balloon. Wait, is that a sea mine? Anyway, eventually we find the aforementioned hut with the door inside. It's strangely ornate and rather out of place. Going through leads us to this grand mansion called the Manor. After looking around for a moment, we come across an open door, and inside we find Mael. Thankfully, she's safe, and we find the one who perhaps wrote that note. He's friendly, I think. Well, regardless, with Mael safe and sound, we can finally move on with the mission. We head outside and are greeted by a new friend, Noko, a being known as a Gestrel. They're these little paintbrush-like creatures known for two things, trading and fighting. He agrees to lead us to the Gestrel village, where we hope to find more help and guidance.
Is that a Gestrel?
Before we enter the Red Forest, we're stopped by a rose that reminds us of Sophie. We pick the rose and are immediately attacked by the second boss Nevron. We finally make it to the Red Forest, where the Gestrel village is located. In said Gestrel village, we meet the chief, who informs us that someone called Esquier could assist us in our endeavor, but in order to go there, we have to fight in the tournament to obtain the password to get past the guard to his lair. We partake in the tournament, and after getting to the final round, we find Ciel, a fellow expeditioner of the 33rd who we lost on the beach. We give a good show to the spectators in a match against her, and once we're done, we get the password.
Get out of my way!
The password is get out of my way.
We head back to camp before continuing the journey, and here, during a conversation between the group, Mael gets a weird feeling before being pulled into a grayscaled time distortion. Here she meets a masked woman with scars on her face and who's missing an eye, along with the old man from the beach. They argue a bit before telling Mael she needs to take her friends and go home. The old man says they should live out their final years in peace instead of fighting, and if they don't, they'll all be killed. After she comes out of the time stop, the others try and calm her down. They realize that they can't stop, so they need to get Eskie's help and finish the mission fast before the old man and the masked woman can find them.
Golgra said to shout the password as loud as we can. Well, Gustav, you're the loudest.
Get out of my way!
Jeez, parino.
No. It's the password.
Rico femicola, gor granda bare bombino, passwordito, urapito sava.
Look, I am very sorry. That's the password, and
Come on, it's a gestural. He'll have forgotten in about a minute.
Anyway, we meet this lovable giant, Eskie. He's a favorite of ours.
Bonjour, mes amis.
Mr. Marshmallow agrees to help us if we can assist him in finding his rock friends, the first of which we must take from a fierce, mighty foe.
Who dares enter my lair?
Are you Francois? It's just a talking rock.
I am not a rock.
After a quick beatdown, he hands over the rock. In order to progress further, though, we need to obtain another one of Eskie's friends. Thankfully, he knows where it is. The Stone Wave Cliffs. So we head there next. Before we head into the cliffs, we stop and have a rest at camp, during which Mael has a nightmare. Visions of past or future yet to come, we aren't sure. While she's asleep, the masked woman and the old man visit Mael once again. They speak cryptically of us, calling us those who cannot see and those who don't understand, those who know not that they are not. Thanks, I guess. Anyway, onto the Stone Wave Cliffs in search of a rock. Yep, just a rock. We fight our way through some of the creepiest enemy types we've seen so far, and once we get near the end, are guided by a series of lamps, which lead to the Lamp Master. This dude is weird. He's got more arms than anyone really needs unless they're like a max level gooner, let alone his weird ass set of weapons, including a glowing sword and a street lamp. Weird, but alright man, whatever. Let's do this. After fighting our way through what was the toughest and honestly coolest boss fight so far, we finally have a rock for Eskie. And with it, we can traverse the sea and gain even more ground on the Paintress. With a new, hopeful outlook with everything we've accomplished so far, Gustav finds another small pebble to toss at the Paintress from afar. She's not going to be safe from us for much longer. Eventually, we will get there and we will take her down.
Run.
Questions race through our mind as we fight the old man. Why are you attacking us? Aren't we on the same side? Who are you? Who is the masked woman you are with? And possibly the most important one right now, Gustav isn't gonna die, is he? Hours spent with him and the team all crashing down as he fights once again on his final bit of help. But it's useless. There's nothing we can do to change this. Gustav tries to buy time for Mael to escape, but Gustav is dead, and Mael is next. Esukoko walks over to her and claims that this was meant to be a mercy before attacking. However, this attack doesn't do what he expects. We're sent into this colorless void where we hear a conversation between a man and a woman. We don't know who they are or who they're talking about, but eventually Mael snaps back into her body. The old man apologizes, but says he tried to warn us before raising his weapon, and some guy in a tattered expedition uniform saves Mael. He and the old man definitely know each other very well, however. They talk about family and choices made, as the stranger tells Mael to leave and that he'll handle this.
It's okay. I'll handle things here. Get back to your friends.
So she leaves with Eskie and the others to head back to camp. Mael breaks down, crying over the loss of Gustav, which, in all honesty, hits us pretty hard too, so we get it. The stranger finds our camp and returns Gustav's prosthetic arm and Lumina converter. The stranger says that the masked woman and the old man are family. And as informative as that seems, we are quickly gaining more questions than answers at this point. He tells us to go through the quarry to find the monolith, but we have a million questions for him. He explains that he too is an expeditioner of Expedition Zero. He says that some of them stopped aging, including him and the old man who is revealed to be named Renoir, the commander of Expedition Zero. Renoir believes his immortality is a gift from the Paintress and refuses to let her be killed, because if she dies, he dies too. However, the stranger says that he's tired of being immortal, and he no longer wishes to bury everyone he's known. He offers to assist us in killing the Paintress and reveals his name.
Versa.
There's a bit of a tonal shift from here on, which is what you'd expect after the main character is, out of nowhere, mercilessly executed by someone whose motives are vague and confusing. Gustav really is gone. Verso doesn't exactly make the situation any better, especially since the group doesn't immediately trust him. It's evident he knows much more than he's letting on, only telling us what's important in the moment, but he promises that he's on our side. Verso acts as a kind of guide and suggests that the group heads through a region known as the Forgotten Battlefield, both to get closer to the monolith, but also because it'd be a nice place to bury Gustav's prosthetic arm. The group quickly realizes just how dangerous the area is, made evident by the countless corpses of past expeditioners scattered around, littering the ground. Anywhere you look, you see death. And with everything that Maëlle just went through with losing Gustav, this could only make her mental state worse. By the time they reach an ancient bridge, she breaks down.
Everywhere we go, just death. Death and more death. Everywhere we go, just death.
Look, Maëlle,
I thought you would understand. You said you spent your immortality burying the people around you. Doesn't any of this bother you?
A particularly dangerous Nevron responsible for most of the death around them spots the group, and after hearing enough of Maëlle freaking out about their morbid situation, this guy decides he wants them all to just stop talking forever. Maëlle is forced to make a decision, shut down and die, or shut up and fight. The group engages the duelist.
ready?
This did not need to be so goddamn epic, but I'm not gonna complain. After the group escapes the hole they fell into, they find a nice spot and bury Gustav.
Couldn't wait for me, could you? I wish we could.
Rest easy, Gustav.
I'll finish what you started. I'll save them, Gustav. Emma, your apprentices, everyone.
You can leave it to us.
The journey continues as Expedition 33's next objective is to recruit another member to increase their odds of succeeding in their mission. Verso happens to know a good pick, an old friend of his named Minoko, located in a snowy region they call Minoko Station. Once you make it there, you're introduced to some friendly new creatures known as Grandis. They mostly just seem to be chillin', doing their thing. Then Minoko makes his dramatic entrance.
Slow as ever. Mon vieux.
Ladies, could I interest you in a duel?
Definitely a gesture.
This guy is an awesome gestural, balancing a certain serious, deep voice with his charming stubbornness and affinity for ripping the legs off Nevrons and using said legs to temporarily morph into the Nevrons themselves.
We're heading for old Lumiere.
Okay, bye.
Hey, come on. Hey.
Out of the question. I will never join you again.
There will be a lot of fighting, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fighting.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
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 They're like talking like they're in a Discord group chat.
Good.
With a new member recruited, you make the journey to Old Lumiere, where Verso claims the heart of the Paintress can be found, which would be their method of breaking past the barrier and entering the monolith to finally reach her. When you arrive, the sheer state of the ruined city is an ever-pressing reminder of how lucky the fragmented Lumiere lost at sea probably was, since being separated by so much water meant that Nevrons couldn't reach them. Old Lumiere, on the other hand, is no more than a dark, long destroyed battlefield by this point. After getting split up from a poorly handled pathway clearance by Minoko, the group tries to reform, wandering the ruins until Mael, losing sight of Verso, stumbles up to a mysterious manor.
I knew you'd open the door for her.
Verso ultimately used Mael to try and ambush the manor, but his plan didn't exactly pan out.
Really, Verso? This was your plan? How many times must you hurt our family?
So moved. I'm gonna fucking kill him.
You haven't told her the truth. Have you, son?
Sorry we're late. Were you planning on sharing that this man, the man who murdered our team, is your father?
Can we talk about this later? I'd really like for you all to survive this.
Benoit appears for round 2 before the others join and a fight begins. As much as you may try and take him down, Benoit sends a huge blast of energy.
Noko's broken.
Why can't you accept who you are?
Before Renoir attacks the others again, the mysterious masked girl freezes time and enters the black and white mode, where her and Mael get a chance to truly meet. Then she leaves, taking the manor and Renoir with her.
Where did it go? No. Alicia.
Fuck!
The plan to use the Paintress's heart, which was ultimately located in the manor, is now a dead end. And to add to their misery, we find out that Verso is Renoir's son. A pretty important detail he just so happened to never tell them until now, but not all is lost. The group ended up finding one particular previous expedition journal with some useful information.
Verso called this thing an axon. Apparently they are incredibly powerful. Verso and his father Renoir spent years trying to kill the axons, hoping to forge their hearts into a weapon to break the barrier. I bet the curator would love to get his hands on one of those hearts. He could easily forge such a weapon.
So as it turns out, behemoth creatures known as axons could be slain and their hearts given to the curator in exchange for a weapon that could break the monolith's barrier and finally get them inside. There are 2 axons they need to slay. A third exists, but Verso says it's not reachable for them. One of the 2 is composed of floating masks. Dude, I can't do fucking anything! What the fuck? And another is an enchanting, towering dancer. Oh, it's Gustav! My boy! After slaying the axons and having the curator craft their weapon, the group reaches the barrier and pauses, preparing for what they're about to do. Once you reach the Paintress, it looks like this is it, but, well, needless to say, you can't do anything to her. Then, when all hope seems lost, the Paintress reveals herself.
Follow her. Quickly. This might be our only chance.
After making it inside the monolith and running through different strange yet familiar constructions of the levels you've just faced, a reminder of just how far you've come, you run into that familiar obstacle one last time.
Is that
You.
We're taking her down.
She's not the only one who grieves. I refuse to lose my son.
That son was a stranger.
But you're not. You're not. So you leave us no choice. Tell me, how are you different from her in doing this?
I'm tired.
So trust me. We are your family.
Family is complicated.
A long battle ensues, and after finally weakening him, the curator appears.
At long last, we meet. This is all you have left of your son. Destroying it won't bring your wife back. It will only destroy the last tie you have to each other. I love them too.
we did it, Gustav?
If you're confused, don't worry, it's all gonna make sense soon enough. After Renoir is defeated, the group makes the climb up to the top of the monolith, where they find the paintress herself.
You've come back. But the fire. Are you really here?
The woman seems confused, delirious even.
Oh, is he playing tricks again?
Alicia. Alicia.
Your face.
My face? What about my face? Are you going to burn it again?
Alicia's your daughter.
And I'll remind you of her.
This is another trick. She's not Alicia. You are not my Verso.
No. Verso's dead.
You will not take this canvas from me.
Let's shake the earth.
No. We're not done yet.
When she realizes her mistake, the paintress stops fighting. Oh shit. Shit, can I skip my turn? I don't want to do this. And with that, it's finally over. Everything is okay, but something feels off. The complete picture not fully understood. Was it really this simple? What was Renoir talking about? What connection does the curator have to the paintress? And what else is Verso not telling the others? They fly all the way back home to Lumière on Esquier and have a deserved celebration. Everyone seems at ease, all except for Verso. He takes a seat at the pier and pulls out a letter.
Brother, I tire of the conflicts and deceptions that plague our family and theirs. So, I entrust you with this letter. Whether you give it to her is up to you. Maya, it's a strange feeling watching you with my brother, laughing and smiling, without the scars or the memories that afflict me. Alicia, as she was meant to be, not this painted version that I am. My family, a facsimile of yours, and this world, a mirror, painted by your mother, the paintress, to stave off her grief. Seeing your expedition through would plunge us all into the abyss. For in ridding the world of the paintress, you'd lose the sole force standing against the one who would erase us. The one who invokes the flowers of the gommage. An act of love. Your father. On her monolith, she paints a warning for us all. Of the few she can save as her power wanes. Your mother paints life, whilst your father, death. What will you paint?
With the paintress gone, nothing remains in the way of her loving husband from painting death, erasing them all in one fell swoop. After seeing Maëlle get gommaged right after everyone around her experienced the same fate, you're probably left wondering, what just happened? But see, that's where the epilogue comes in, and, well, you can just see for yourself.
You're okay.
As you wander around the manor, now playing as a rather familiar girl, you wander into the room you're being called to. But before we step into this room, let's pause for a second. The game pretty much is about to rip the band-aid off, just momentarily, letting the whole cat out of the bag anyway, that this is in fact the first real environment containing the first real people in the game canon that you've seen so far. We might as well start from the very beginning to clear up the context of what is truly happening, what this game is really all about, and it's probably not at all what you expected. We know little about the real world of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, but it appears to be set in an alternate reality, fantasy version of the 19th century, this region in particular inspired by La Belle Époque. The game's version of the real world contains at least two types of special magical associations: the painters and the writers. These people formed groups known as the Painters' Council and the Writers' Guild, respectively. We do know that there's a conflict between painters and writers, but we don't really know when the conflict started or why it's there, just that it's very real and would end up being deadly. One painter, who would eventually become the leader of the Painters' Council, named Aline Descendre, married a man named Renoir. With the power of painting, Aline was able to bring worlds to life in a canvas, and she taught this skill to Renoir. They painted hundreds of canvases together, and eventually Renoir got lost inside of one, immersing himself to a dangerous degree. The power was euphoric. How could it not be? As a painter or paintress, you are a god in a sandbox of paint. But if one were to stay in a painted world for too long, they could lose themselves. Aline eventually had to pull him out of that painting to stop him from basically dying. This was an important lesson, and Renoir took it seriously. Fast forward, Renoir and Aline have 3 children. Clair, the oldest, Verso, the middle child, and Alicia, the youngest. And each of them were taught to paint as well. Verso didn't seem to paint very much, though as a child he painted a world that him and Alicia used to play in as kids, which contained creatures he brought to life that were based on real things he was attached to, like their 2 dogs, Noko and Monoko, and his doll, Esquier, as well as gestrels based on his toys, and presumably the Grandis. As the kids grew up, and by the time Verso was 26 years old, the date was December 33rd, 1905. And no, the game does not have an explanation for why months go past the 31st, it just does. Alicia, by some means, began trusting the opposing Writers' Guild, and for whatever reason, they used her naivete to do something horrible. They set a blazing fire in the manor, and Verso, in trying to save Alicia from the flames, sacrificed himself as Alicia had to hear her brother's flesh burning away in an attack that was most likely meant for her. Alicia, while scarred for the rest of her life and being unable to speak, did survive the attack. The Descendre family was broken after Verso's death. Aline was plunged into despair as she decided to go into Verso's only canvas and inhabit his world as her way of grieving. In this process, she painted further in his world and seemingly forced Verso's last remaining sliver of his soul that was still in the canvas to help her grieve. That soul was represented by this small, lost boy who was forced to paint with no end in sight. Aline just couldn't let go of Verso. She couldn't accept his death, nor could she let go of her idealized version of a family before the disaster had taken her dear son. She resented Alicia, blaming her daughter for Verso's death. Aline also failed her responsibilities as the leader of the Painters Guild in the real world and left her position or was fired. Renoir and Aline slowly grew apart as she grieved alone within the canvas, and Alicia, after the fire, was now missing an eye and was unable to speak or breathe without feeling pain. Clair, the oldest child, was an incredibly skilled painter and took all the weight of her broken family upon her back. Because of Aline's inability to move on, she decided to stay in Verso's painting, refusing to come out. She created alternate versions of each of her family members, but the alternate version of Alicia was ghostly and shunned, since Aline wanted to delude herself into believing that Alicia was the one who died in the fire instead of Verso. We call the alternate versions of the family members the painted versions. In creating them, she made them all immortal, unable to age, so that that perfect vision of a family could never change. As Aline and the sliver of Verso's soul had continued painting the world, fleshing it out, they painted a lot of other people into existence too. Most of these people lived in a city known as Lumière, which looked strikingly similar to our real-world Paris, as well as what may be the fictional Paris-type city of the in-game world. While Aline was so stricken with grief that she was willing to fully lose herself in the painting, even if that meant dying in the process, her husband Renoir refused to let his wife face such a terrible fate. After all, she had saved him once in the same scenario. Out of options, Renoir joined her in the painting, with the goal of getting her out. But he quickly realized that he wasn't going to be able to convince his wife to leave. She was uncompromising. She had decided that this was her way of grieving, and that nobody, not even her husband, could stop her. Not long after, a conflict between them sparked, and the two struggled for control over the magical essence of the world, what we know as chroma, which, by the way, means color in ancient Greek. After Aline and Renoir truly began to fight, the major fracture event happened, literally breaking apart and fragmenting the painted world, splitting apart entire colonies of creatures, and namely, the people of Lumière. After the fracture, Renoir went on to create 4 gigantic entities, what we know as axons, for the purpose of perhaps being chroma sponges or reserves for later use. They were also very powerful. Renoir designed each of them to represent a different family member, likely being his way of dealing with grief. Reacher, the highest axon in the canvas, represents Alicia, a kind of hope for her to be able to move on in life despite the physical and emotional damage she suffered due to their family's great loss. The Visage axon, said to be he who guards truth with lies, represented Verso, as his passion had always been in music, though he never admitted it to his parents until he was older. The Hauler, the axon with dozens of buildings atop its mighty back, represents Clair, the sister who took most of the burden of family responsibilities onto herself after Verso's death. And last, Serene, she who plays with wonder, represented Aline and her insistence on showing herself only what she wanted to see, the wonder of what could have been had that terrible day never come. But as far as terrible days go, the painted world itself would remember the fracture as perhaps the most terrible. When it split and fragmented, the immortal painted Desange family, at the very least Renoir and Verso, were in the section of Lumiere that got thrown into the ocean. It's most likely that the painted Alicia and painted Clair were lost in the fracture in the old Lumiere part of the world. Another major change in the land was that Aline created her own titanic humanoid avatar that would go on to be known by everyone as, you guessed it, the Paintress. Every year, she painted a descending number on her monolith, starting from 100. But at last, we finally understand the reason. See, in this year, 100, painted Renoir and Verso, who at the time were entirely clueless to everything, including the fact that they were painted, began the first expedition. This was Expedition Zero, and its purpose was to find the people who were lost, to find loved ones, a kind of search and rescue. Among the many members was a man named Simon, who wanted to find his lover that just so happened to be the painted Clair. After reaching the main continent, the group journeyed onward, but along their expedition, Simon went missing, eventually finding Clair, except, see, the Clair he found, unbeknownst to him at the time, was an avatar of the real one from the real world. She had entered the painting around this time to aid her father in stopping her mother to bring her out of the painting. And while Clair was in the painted world, she found her painted self. Repulsed by it, she corrupted the painted Clair by painting over her, and proceeded to lock painted Clair in a floating manner where she was forced to indefinitely paint a never-ending army of chroma-absorbing creatures, the ones you fight in-game, called Nevrons. After Simon found real Clair, the expert paintress that she was tricked him into thinking she was the painted one that he knew, and in order to turn the tides against her mother, she granted Simon the power to fell axons, which would allow him to enter the monolith, the location where Aline had just been imprisoned by Renoir. After Simon did Clair's bidding and slayed the Hauler axon, the one which in fact represented Clair, he entered the monolith, passing through the barrier that protected the paintress, and at last he met her. But Aline didn't fight him. She told him the truth about their painted world, and that at this point in the whole conflict, she had trapped real Renoir underneath the monolith so he couldn't do anything to stop her. She also explained to Simon that Renoir's goal was ultimately to be the one who brings the gommage, to erase the painted world, all for the sake of getting his wife out. So Simon went under the monolith to fight, but ultimately lost in battle against Renoir and was corrupted. The now desperate father he was, Renoir escaped not long after, and would continue to try and figure out how to stop his wife. While Simon's fate was rather bleak, there was still the rest of Expedition Zero, which itself eventually reached the barrier to the monolith right before Clair appeared. She told them everything about their world and what was happening, being at the very least honest, but then threatened to kill them all if they didn't go home and kind of just embrace their ultimate demise in the painting's destruction. The expedition refused, and it makes sense why. These people, as much as they were painted, didn't necessarily feel any less real than the painters themselves, and these brave people weren't just going to accept everything they knew being erased. They fought back, but all of them died except for painted Verso and Renoir, since they had been made immortal, if you recall. Even so, the fight did subdue them for a time. Not long after Expedition Zero had been sent out, a search and rescue went looking for the group. Julie, a woman who Verso loved dearly, witnessed him get torn in half, somehow not dying during battle. This insane, unexplainable occurrence was deeply disturbing to her, and it would go on to quickly make the others in the rescue group suspicious. After she and some of the other people of Lumiere captured Verso, demanding he give them answers, realizing that the horrible weight of the truth would never be believed, Painted Verso and Renoir defended themselves, slaying the group. Painted Renoir justified this with his son, saying that they couldn't trust that the other people hadn't just been created by Clair to trick them. Needless to say, when some random godlike woman drops a bombshell like, "This world and everything you know and love is just some painted fantasy in my dead brother's canvas," you're probably not going to take that very well, no matter who you are. Painted Renoir wanted him and his family to survive, and so killing people, the expeditioners from then on, would keep the paintress from being disturbed, which was his plan to prevent Clair and the real Renoir from gaining enough ground to stop what Aline was doing. Painted Verso helped Renoir do this for a time, but eventually stopped because he just wanted the conflict to be over. He was tired of burying expeditioners, burying his friends. The so-called gommage that Aline had warned Simon about previously was suddenly going to become a big problem. In the canvas, Renoir and Clea were draining Aline's chroma via the nevrons and axons, and Aline's power began to wane, too weak to fully prevent him from erasing all beings, namely the painted people in the world. This power shift manifested as an inability for Aline to prevent her oldest creations from being erased by Renoir, those who accumulated the most amount of life, even if it wasn't real life. It started at 100, hence why she wrote the number in the monolith for all to see. Year by year, it went down, and year by year, the people who were that many years old were simply gommaged by Renoir. After people began to catch on that this was happening, the citizens of Lumière began to think, with their limited information, that the paintress was responsible for people dying, and that by her replacing the number year by year, she was directly responsible for culling people. Aline meant for the number to represent a desperate warning of her waning power, but they simply saw her as evil. Expeditions were sent again and again, year after year, to journey towards the monolith and destroy the paintress. But because the world was becoming ever more dangerous, their odds got slimmer each year as waves of brave expeditioners were slaughtered again and again by painted Renoir and the many nevrons that plagued the land. Some expeditions, like Expedition 60, not only managed to, somehow by sheer strength, make it through the monolith barrier and meet Aline, but one of their members got so close to delivering the truth about their world back to the ignorant and isolated Lumière before ultimately meeting his end, washed up at sea. The culture of sacrifice for the ones that would come after was instilled in the people and strengthened year after year. One of the most hauntingly inspiring examples of this culture was showcased by one expedition in particular, which went as far as to build a bridge with their own corpses, like ants bridging together for the greater good of their colony. But while this was all happening, with years of history and conflict being painted into the canvas, time wasn't moving all that much in the real world. And speaking of which, for the Descendre family, things weren't looking great. Clea was having to carry the whole family's responsibilities on her back, as her mother and father were basically AFK in Verso's painting, all while Clea had to tend to the painters versus writers conflict, which again we know so little about. By the Painted World's monolith year 49, real-world Alicia wasn't doing much. She seemed to be pretty miserable and definitely in need of some therapy, as she blamed herself for her brother's death and seemed very traumatized. But Clea, being the cold and calculated sister she was, had something for Alicia to do, and that is where we finally pick up with the epilogue. After waking up from a nightmare of Verso being consumed by flames, Alicia stumbles out of bed and hears her sister yelling for her to reach the end of the corridor of their family's manor. After she arrives, Alicia gazes at the situation her family is in. Her parents are motionless, both immersed in the canvas, fighting in timescales upon which are unknown. Clea's casual demeanor implies that the Painted World's past 51 years since the fracture had happened had gone by in perhaps only days or weeks in the real world. Nonetheless, Clea tells her sister to do something useful and help get their mother out by entering the canvas and assisting Renoir. Alicia agrees, and the two girls hide the painting in a dark, unknown location as a contingency for if their mother, after getting ejected from the painting, tried to get back in. From there, Alicia enters the painting, but panics.
See? That wasn't so hard. Wait, that's Aline's chroma. Stay calm. Don't let it take control of you. Calm, Alicia, or it'll paint over you. What an auspicious start. Well, you're about to be reborn in this world as one of Aline's creations. Have fun. At least this will keep you out of trouble until I get back.
For whatever reason, if you were to panic when entering the painting, you'd get painted over by Aline's chroma, which would cause you to be reborn as a random new child in the world, instead of simply being a painted avatar of your choosing. And so, due to a simple mistake, Alicia had her memories wiped, at least while in the Painted World, and she experienced a reincarnation of sorts, being born again, but this time to painted parents, in Monolith Year 49. These new parents named her Maëlle, and it's at this point that you're probably connecting the dots. Hopping into Verso's Painted World basically right after Alicia, but namely without panicking, Clea found the rather nomadic Verso, telling him to watch over the reborn Alicia just to keep her safe, as she was going to have a hard time doing what Clea asked her to do as a mind-wiped, paint-born girl. Understanding the situation, Verso agreed to keep an eye on her, visiting Lumière every so often. At a young age, Mael's parents were gommaged, and she became an orphan, growing up with many different families, many of which were gommaged all the same, as the oldest people that could exist was an ever-lowering age. But eventually, a kind man changed that orphan's life. A man which invented incredible things for expeditioners, a man who wanted so badly to save his people, a man who would do anything for those he loved. For Mael, Gustave loved her perhaps more than any of her parents could. And by the time Mael turned 16, Expedition 33 would be the one to change everything. Armed with the context of this whole situation, we can now continue on from where we left off, everyone basically dying. But is that it? Well, Mael, of course, didn't die in the real world, she just got sent out of the painting, which is what happens when a painter dies in their painting. They just simply wake up in the real world. But we continue where we left off as Mael returns back to Lumiere after having re-entered the painting. She maintains her form, choosing a bit of a different look this time. White hair. Mael finds Verso, seemingly one of the last people in this painted world who hadn't been gommaged, and they exchange a few words.
Alicia.
Actually, I prefer Mael.
I think I do too. But I'm not really Verso, and you're not really Mael, are you?
You're not Verso, no. You look and sound just like him, but you're you. I'm still Mael, though. Maman did a terrible thing, painting you into Verso's canvas, giving you his memories, pretending the fire only took me. But I'm glad you exist.
Your father was right to erase everyone is better this way.
Better for who? Verso would never have wanted his canvas gone. He loved Esquier and his gestrels and Grandis.
It was killing our mother. Staying here so long in a make-believe world with her make-believe family.
Verso, now more jaded than ever, and simply wanting this world to end for the sake of the real Alicia and the real Aline, plays along, entertaining Alicia's optimism about her father. Despite everything, the irony is that Alicia appears just as stricken by grief as her mother, but most of all, she refuses to let go of Verso's canvas world, as not only is it the only remaining piece of his soul they have left, but she just prefers the painted world over the real one because, in reality, she views herself as broken and useless due to her physical injuries. Verso asks Mael a good question as they look for Renoir.
Your father was the one erasing everyone. Why would he help repaint everything?
I hid the canvas before I entered, so Maman can't come back again.
Mael seems to believe that just because she and Claire hid the canvas, Renoir would be fine with letting it stick around, but we quickly learn that this desperate father would not be willing to take any more chances.
Papa!
Alicia. Some of Eline's finest work. I regret that it caused you so much pain. I know it seems absurd to offer oblivion as recompense, but perhaps that's the outcome we both desire.
What?
Once we erase the canvas, we won't have to worry anymore.
No, Papa, see, I hid the canvas.
You will always find it. This is our only opportunity, while she's too sick from her prolonged descent into the canvas to return. I am not letting my daughter risk her life.
I'm not going to lose myself if I stay.
And I am not doing this again!
The conflict between Alicia and her father escalates, and she calls for Esquier to help her escape with Verso, after which they make it safely back to their camp. Then she desperately begins to paint. After Mael explains the situation to Lune and Ciel, as you'd expect, Lune doesn't take it too well. But Ciel asks a good question.
You can bring them back too. Yeah? Everyone we've lost.
With so much at stake, as Verso talks to different members of the party, it becomes somewhat clearer what the situation has evolved into. Alicia has more or less taken the role of her mother, refusing to let Verso's canvas go, now with the goal of bringing everyone back and forcing her father out so that she can stay in the canvas world forever. On the other hand, Verso is conflicted. He cares about his friends, but he also cares about the real Descent family and understands Renoir's concern for his daughter, especially after everything he just went through trying to get his wife out. The literal decades he experienced within the canvas just to save her from certain death. But regardless of these different perspectives, Alicia calls the shots from here on, and the team begins their final expedition, gathering the last chroma from fallen expeditioners to rebirth them into an army in the final battle of the canvas.
Tomorrow comes.
Waves of enemies later, you finally reach Renoir standing there awaiting his daughter. He tries to talk some sense into her once more.
Alicia.
Please, I just want you to understand what this canvas means to me.
I do understand. I know how powerful and intoxicating it is. How deeply attached we can become to the worlds we pour our hearts and souls into. I was enthralled, and it nearly killed me.
It doesn't mean you have to erase Verso's canvas.
Child, do you think I want to? After all the sorrows we've endured, do you really think that I want to destroy this last piece of his soul?
You treat me as if I'm still 5!
I treat you as if the shadow from the worst day of our lives is going to suffocate you and take you from us too!
This is it, the ultimate conflict. The true Renoir prepares to attack. Partway through the battle, something unexpected happens.
She can't.
Mama.
Verso, caring so dearly for Aline despite being only connected to her by paint, is distraught at her entrance, yet Renoir enters a rage, calling his wife selfish for risking her life in the act. After enough fighting, Maëlle finishes it.
Not this time!
Your mother was the one who saved me when I lost myself in a canvas. She taught me how to safely use our gift. How to soar without flying too close to the sun. We painted hundreds of canvas worlds, pushing the very boundaries of creation. And she never let me forget that every day we spent here has a price. "67 years I spent trapped within the monolith. Do you know why I cannot leave her or you behind? This is what I see every day. Since the fire, our family has crumbled. I cannot lose you too.
Don't you see? That's how I feel about them. Just a little longer.
I want to trust you, but...
You can.
keep the light on for you. Hold on to each other.
Verso!
I'm sorry.
Verso enters a kind of in-between world, some kind of medium outside the canvas, yet not quite inside the real world either. He finds a canvas within, and a familiar young boy painting it, the last sliver of Verso's soul that remains.
You're tired of painting, aren't you? I'm tired too. See things as they are, not how you want them to be.
What?
You lied to your father.
No.
You saw it too. You're going to die here. Why don't you just leave? You can always come back.
The moment I leave, Papa will erase this canvas.
This is not worth your life. You don't need this canvas.
But everything I want is here.
It's time to stop painting.
Verso! Papa also said, hold on to each other.
You're left with a choice as the player. Side with Mael by fighting as her, or side with Verso, fighting as him. As Mael, all of Verso's efforts and desperation to end his family's suffering would be for naught, as his dear sister makes her choice.
Listen to me. Only you can do this. You can do this, please. Unpaint me. Unpaint me.
Verso.
Please. I don't want this life.
Stop saying that.
I don't want this life.
If you could grow old, would you find a reason to smile?
Mael's ending has her staying in the canvas for the rest of eternity, giving Verso the ability to grow old at last, likely taking away his immortality. The many people lost to the Gamage that have now been repainted to life in the canvas attend Verso's concert where he's about to play again. As expected, Mael's fate is bleak. Choosing Verso's desired ending, he overpowers Mael and lets the canvas world disappear for good, along with everyone created inside it.
Don't do this. Don't leave me again.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, huh? You've got this incredible power to paint. You'll never have to suffer a life you don't want. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. I will miss you guys. us.
After the canvas's demise, we see Verso's true funeral in the real world, as he's finally laid to rest, his family having fully accepted his death at last.